the Buffalo Bills did it right. They got the right coordinator that they made their head coach. That's a leader of men, kind of like Joe Judge is over at the New York Giants. And they got the right quarterback who's been in the same system now for 3 years, who is built like a Mack truck. He's an athlete, but more so than anything else, the thing that you love about what Josh Allen has done this year in particular, he's had 4 really great games, and last night was one of those 4 games. I mean, he's played great against the Seahawks, the Rams, the Dolphins, and now last night against the 5th-ranked 49er defense and made it look easy. And he said after the game that, basically the ball was coming off of his hand like it never had before, like he was just in his zone. And we've all played. For those of us who play, we understand exactly what he means. There are those games where you go out there and everything's right. You're reading the defense right. You're calling the right plays. Your offensive line's playing great. You're running the ball. I thought last night's game was it was physical. It was a really good game. Yesterday's game in Pittsburgh was a little sloppy. And, they got it. To me, it looks like Ben Roethlisberger's calling the plays. They got to take the play calling away from him because this is not the Steeler team. Like the last 2 weeks now, I will say this. For the Steelers, they are caught up in pandemic hell when it comes to scheduling, and they've had to play some really weird games at weird times, and they've had to move things around.
And Washington hadn't played since Thanksgiving.
Right, and no excuses, and Mike Tomlin will never make any excuses. I'm just saying, as a fan and as an analyst watching this game, the Steelers are out of whack, man, and this is a team that threw 53 times yesterday. They had 7 drop passes. They had, I don't know how many tip balls at the line of scrimmage. Ben wasn't sacked at all. So as active as that defensive line is and the accolades that it does get, they didn't get to him.
Barely.
So,
I mean, they barely touched him until the fourth quarter. It was all about getting their hands up, though. I mean, that's where they were active.
Montez Sweat was unbelievable.
Oh, my goodness, how many tip balls.
And Chase Young is just relentless.
Is he the play he made at the goal line on that 4th and 1?
Yeah,
I mean,
relentless.
He leapt in the air and made a tackle while he was in midair to stop that 4th and inches, basically, on the goal line.
Like, the one thing, I don't understand. I understand why he did it. And I'm talking about Ben Roethlisberger here. They got a 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter. It's around 4:50 to go in the game. And Tomlin obviously is going to decide to go to it. I
think they should have kicked the field goal.
Well, if they would have had Boswell active, maybe they would have kicked the field goal.
But that kid was great. I got to be honest with you. He nailed the 2 extra points, and he nailed the field goal with 30-something yards.
It's a little different situation. But, hey, look, the coach is going to make a call.
But if you're going to run that 4th down play and not kick the field goal, don't throw the ball to a third-string running back.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's what I'm going to say. I'm like, why is he throwing it to Anthony McFarland? Now, Anthony McFarland, is a Maryland kid, so I love him. And he was great at Maryland when he played there.
He's doing a back shoulder throw to a running back.
To a kid that's probably cold from standing on the sideline because they didn't play much. And you have all these other wide receivers. Maybe he lost confidence in his wide receivers, keep dropping balls all over the place. And Eric Ebron's just so frustrating. He's the Evan Ingram of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looks great on one play, and then the next play just drops the ball, and it's just inexcusable. But to get back to my original point, I don't know why Pittsburgh has gotten away from who Pittsburgh is supposed to be. And it only leads me to believe that Ben Roethlisberger is calling this offense.
Well, why wouldn't he want to run the ball, though? He should want to at least have a little bit of a running game.
Dude, he's a quarterback.
But when you played, didn't you want a little bit of a running game?
Make things easier
running game.
Back when I played, I loved a big running game. Take a lot of pressure off you.
So why would he want to just eliminate it completely?
Because it's the NFL, and he's trying to put it's not. I don't want him to sound like he's selfish. He's not. He's their leader. He's their unquestioned leader, and he's the guy. They're going to go as far as he takes them.
Well,
but I just think they got to rein him in a little bit because he's calling the plays of the line. I can hear him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I wouldn't put it past, though. I'm not disagreeing with it. But I would think that he'd want to get that running game going. It seems like he gets frustrated with it and abandons it right away. Now, I know James Conner's missed a couple of games, but it's not like James Conner is Derrick Henry. And they do have capable backs, and Benny Snell has looked good to a certain degree. But, what's funny to me is a team that, hates running the ball. Ran the ball so many times on those 7 chances that they had down at the goal line with the penalty where they got the goal line stopped.
Yep.
And then they ended up on the 4th and 1 running the ball there, too, in a critical moment. Now, it didn't kill them because then they punted, and there was one play to James Washington for a touchdown after that. But they are out of whack. It is weird. And Ben's history, when he first got in the league, if you remember, his offensive coordinator with Bill Cowher was Ken Wisenhunt. He hated Ken Wisenhunt. And then after that, he got offensive coordinators that would cater to him, really, until Todd Haley came in. And then Todd Haley and him,
they were like this.
And then after that, Coach Randy became his offensive coordinator, who had been his quarterback's coach and basically his masseuse for the last 10 years.
And he wants to become look. He wants to be his coach for a long time. Wants to finish probably with him.
Yeah.
And is going to let him control the entire game because, say whatever you want. I mean, a quarterback of Ben's stature has earned that right. There's no question about that. But I think it's gotten away from him myself. And I know the injuries on defense really hurt them yesterday because, you could see Avery Williamson was on the field and he was lost at times. Sure. There were guys running wide open.
Well, they were losing guys, too. They lost Spillane, and obviously Bud Dupree was the first game they didn't play without him. You just sort of see that this was unfolding, and this was something what I said before the game, not after the game. But the fact that they had just played on Wednesday, there was no Marquise Pouncey again. They were playing without Bud Dupree. The fact that defensive line is what it is against the Steelers' offensive line that isn't what it was a couple of years ago.
But bat downs and tips and all that other stuff.
And you couldn't run the ball, yeah.
And they couldn't run against it. I give, like I said, Chase Young and Montez Sweatman, they were relentless. Great. See, this is why the Washington football team is a tough team. The Giants beat them twice.
I know. I was going to say, that was one of the things I was thinking of last night. Good for the Giants for beating them twice and having that tiebreaker because this Washington team is – they're coming a little bit here. This was not just all about the Steelers last night. think about it. They lose Antonio Gibson early on in this game, and he is an offensive weapon for them that is just with Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson is basically all they got. They're looking for other guys. Cam Sims made a couple plays. The tight end made a couple plays, but basically it's been Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin. So you lose him in the beginning of this game. You're down 14 points on the road to an undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers team that's got a top defense, and you somehow come back and win that game. That's a statement win for Washington and Ron
last
Rivera.
Night, just so people understand, when the Jets start looking for a coach and all this other stuff, again, last night, two coaches that I would say are coaches that coach from 1,000 feet. You know what I mean? Like, they're all over the whole entire team. They're not just offensive or defensive coaches and are distracted on the sideline because they're worried about whether or not their quarterback understands their system or not. So that's another way of looking at the way these two teams are coached. And when they hired Ron Rivera down in Washington, there wasn't one person that disagreed with that hiring.
It was perfect hire at the perfect time for that organization.
And he had to navigate all the crap that they were going through with their nickname, with also the sexual harassment claims against Dan Snyder and everything else. You couldn't have asked, and he's battling cancer in the middle of a pandemic. You got your quarterback coming back from 17 surgeries, possibly amputation on his leg, for God's sake.
It's incredible.
It is really an amazing story what's going on in Washington. So, good for them. Pittsburgh is still number one in the AFC because Washington is an NFC team. So Pittsburgh is undefeated in the AFC. Kansas City obviously lost their game to the Raiders, so that's within the AFC. That's why they still remain number two.
And, of course, remember, only one bye this year. If people have forgotten, he added an extra wild card team, so you got 7 teams, and the 1 seed is the only one that gets a bye in each conference.
The 2 games this year that did not feel like really NFL games, and they felt flat to me initially, were both Pittsburgh and Baltimore and Pittsburgh and Washington.
Played at ridiculous times. Yeah, Wednesday afternoon.
Just didn't feel right. And even yesterday, at the beginning of the game was a weird game, and Washington got down 14-0. But last night's Monday night game felt like a real game.
Sure.
And Josh Allen was great, and that was a physical game last night. Brian Griese was saying that going into the game, that they thought like they were going to have like a really physical football game between these two teams. And it was a really good game last night.
And it's really about Josh Allen to me and how well he played. And I guess the question coming out of that is, do you believe that there's another team in the AFC other than Kansas City or Pittsburgh that could represent the AFC in the Super Bowl? And if that's the case, is Buffalo that team?
Is it Tennessee? Tennessee is capable. Is Indianapolis is capable?
Tennessee is. I know Buffalo's had their roller coaster moments, but
how about Indianapolis?
Yeah. I know they're missing something there in Indianapolis. I don't know. I look at it, but the problem is, so it's always Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh and Kansas City. And then that other team in the AFC is always like, it's either they put on this great performance like the Bills did last night and Josh Allen looks like an MVP caliber player, or they're getting beat up by the Cardinals, or Tennessee looks great and then they're punching somebody in the mouth and Derrick Henry stiff-arming somebody, or they're down 31-3 to the Browns. There's just a lot of inconsistency once you get past the Chiefs and the Steelers.
Oh, and you got the Ravens going tonight now.
They're
going against the Cowboys tonight.
They're done.
And they're going to get Lamar Jackson back, and the Cowboys are going to be playing in Baltimore tonight. Look, they're not done yet. They have a I know.
Get them out of here. They're done.
They have a history. I know you don't like the Ravens. They have a history of being in situations like this and going on a run.
I just don't like. I mean, the strength coach walking in, it's almost screwing, putting the NFL season in peril, messing with other teams who have done the right thing. I mean, I know the Steelers, they're not going to complain. At least Mike Tomlin's not going to complain about it. But, I mean, part of the reason I think they lost last night is because of the Ravens, quite frankly.
Yeah, I understand that because they have every right to bitch and complain, but they can't. You know what? You can't in the middle of a pandemic, man. My God.
No, I know.
Try to get through a season.
But here's the reason why. And I know that the point that you just made is the overarching point, and it's hard to argue. But when you're going through all those protocols and you're doing the right thing, and then someone screws you who's not doing the right thing, it's your natural human emotion to say that this sucks. And that's why they felt the way that they did.
I think I know of two teams that haven't had a COVID outbreak, like of any of any
you mean
kind.
like a one positive test at all?
I think the Seahawks and the Jets. There may be another team.
I feel like the Jets had one.
I think the Jets have basically kept the virus out of their facility.
Well, I was reading
about like
the coronavirus.
Right, I was reading about Pete Carroll's comments yesterday. He was talking about how they have gone to the nth degree to make sure that the COVID-19 doesn't infect their building, and they've gone through all of these different steps. And it really is a credit to the teams that are trying to keep the thing on schedule and doing everything possible, even in the midst. Like, I have to believe for the Jets, from the coaches to the front office and the players, it's just got to be miserable to go to work. Like, you get up and you're like, I can't even believe that I got to do this again and I got to go through this again. The whole mindset of losing and then having to be tested and follow all these protocols is mentally has got to be exhausting for that team.
No, I understand it. And a guy like Frank Gore, I can see how that would really bother him because he's had a long, illustrious career. This is how he's ending his career. He may not play next year. This has got to be really tough. But I'll say from the other side of that, there's a lot of really young players that are playing NFL football right now that may not have on any other roster in any other situation. And to me, you got to look at the positive of that and say, I have an opportunity right now that maybe I wouldn't get. I could be a practice squad player on some other team and then get cut in camp next year and spin my wheels because the Jets are a total mess here. And we have them basically trading off everybody in an organizational tank from the top, and I'm playing. Hey, be happy you could play in an NFL game this week. I don't want to hear about being miserable.
I know for a fact that there's not an organizational tank going on at the Jets. I know that for a fact.
Well, they're playing a lot of young guys.
I understand that, and
they play Joe Flacco to go win a game, and then tell me they're not the organizational tank.
They want to see what Sam Darnold has. When you think about Baker Mayfield, has finally come out of it. It's taken Kevin Stefanski to get him out of it, and it's Kareem Hunt, it's Nick Chubb, it's an offensive line. There's no Odell Beckham Jr. in his ear. Jarvis Landry's playing great. And now all of a sudden, Baker Mayfield looks like a first overall pick. He had his best game as a pro last week against Tennessee. Josh Allen has now come out of all this running around nonsense and trying to make plays, diving over people. And all of a sudden, he's refined his game, which is what we were talking about at the beginning of the year for him. He needed to refine his game. He needed to be more accurate, needed to be more calm, needed to be more poised. Don't run around as much.
Poise.
Poise is very important. And then, of course, you have Lamar Jackson, who won the MVP. And then there's Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen's already been chewed up and spit out in the quarterback blender. Sam Darnold's 24 years old. He's a kid, and, he needs to play. He just needs to play, if for not for anything else other than himself. And Adam Gase really should play the kid and allow the kid to go out there and show everybody in the NFL that he can still play. I believe that there is a quarterback there that can be an extremely effective quarterback and will be better because of his experiences here in New York. I see him somewhere else next year. I don't know where it will be, but he's got to play. He's just got to be out there, and he's got to play, and he's got to finish the season, and he's got to be healthy, and he's got to go out and try to win a game. He's got to go try to win. Whether or not that hurts the Jets' chances at Trevor Lawrence, it may help him to stay here if he wants to stay here. But the point being, he's got to play. He's got to play, and he's got to go out there and he's got to try to win.
Don't you want to go somewhere else if you're him too?
It all depends. So Joe Douglas is going to be the guy here.
Yep.
All right. And he will be the one that will be, along with one of the Johnson brothers, making a decision on who the next coach will be. Joe Douglas will have an understanding as to who Sam Darnold is and whether or not he wants to start over or he wants to keep him. The decision will be made for them if they do have the number 1 overall pick. It will be Trevor Lawrence, and then Sam Darnold will move on. If it's not the number 1 pick, now the decision becomes a little bit dicier. And now all of a sudden you have to decide whether or not the next coach you bring in here, who's going to put Sam Darnold in his third system, is going to be able to get a better play out of Sam Darnold. You know, that's still all on the table. Like, we're not at the end of the season yet.
I know what you're saying. It just can't be.
We're just not at the end of the season yet. And
they have to be 0-6.
You get me to the end of the season. They have the number 1 draft pick.
We know where it's going.
Then I can see clearly exactly where the Jets are headed and why. You know, Coach Cowher was telling me on Sunday that this is going to be one of the top jobs available if they have the number 1 pick. You want to say the Chargers, if that job becomes available, is attractive? I would say yes. That's really attractive. Why? Because they have pass rushers on the outside. They have wide receivers that get down the field. And they got a 6'6" next coming of Josh Allen.
Oh, it's going to be, without a doubt. And they got really good playmakers on defense. That's absolutely going to be. And it's a weird place. They're playing in a Rams stadium. They've got no fan base in L.A. But as far as the roster, 100%.
And you have a young quarterback, which is the most important ingredient, which makes the game or makes the job really, really attractive. And that's why the big picture of things, the greater good of things for the Jets, they need to go 0-16 or at least get the number 1 pick. Even if they go 2-14, hopefully the Jags go 3-12 or what? I mean, 3-13. So
that's going to be tough, though, man. It really is. Because also, with the tiebreaker, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen to make the Jets, if they have the same record as the Jaguars, still own the number 1 overall pick. There's one way to lock it up, and that's to go 0-16.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.